Looking for plastic models that you can seemingly paint any combination of colours you want and still get GW's nod of approval? Then look no further. My name is Benji, and this is the guide to starting your Stormcast Eternals collection and building your first army. We are here to ready make for you your first 750 points in not one but two different themes, giving you just one decision to make and then more time to get your glue and paintbrush out. So with the introduction of 3rd edition, there's two important integers to consider. 600 points, which is where you start a path to glory or narrative play force, and 750, which will be our magic number today because that's the lowest point limit where match play is recognised in the rules. And so this breakpoint will helpfully cover all bases. Normally we tear blood and sweat to come up with two disparate themes for both builds, just to give you a contrasting flavour of what a faction brings to the table. But with the new core starter sets heralding the release of the new Thunderstrike models, it's as easy as saying our first list will focus on the new models, and our second will be all about the tried and trusted old boys that have flown the Stormcast flag up until 3rd edition. But before we go onward bound, please do take a moment to subscribe to the channel to keep yourself smack bang in the entertainment bubble, and wallop that like button, providing of course you want to. So to the brand spanking new is the new army first, and we have a few leaders released off the back of 3rd ed to choose from, but we opted here for a Knight Vexillor with Banner of Apotheosis that you might need to proxy if you didn't pick up Dominion and this hasn't been released as a standalone yet, but who in terms of stat line is fairly generic for his points cost. 3 up saves, 6 wounds and a 2 damage weapon will get the job done situationally, but that's not why we're really bringing him. You see, if you bring a fashion accessory in the shape of a banner and it's as big as you, let's just say expectations are high. Well, you won't be disappointed picking up to 3 units within 12 inches every hero phase to be the recipient of heals or resurrection. Furthermore, this ability has some waste mitigation built in, because the more of the 3 activations you stack on one particular unit, the more powerful the effect becomes. A nice beginner-friendly power that only benefits from a smaller battlefield at this breakpoint. Next up is 2 units of 5 Vindictors, one of the 2 available new Thunderstrike battle line options. These pack a shield and so are the more durable of the 2, and really just exemplify how well-rounded Stormcast Eternal units can be. They don't do anything spectacular, they just do everything well. Hitting and wounding on 3s, 2 wounds, more 2 wound procs on hit rolls of 6, and a 3 up save to brace for the backswing. But speaking of the other battle line choice, we also have space for 1 unit and 5 Vanquishers, the more gung-ho of the choices, and eschewing the need for a shield and so only rocking a 4 up saves. These guys thrive on horde armies, because although the bulk of their stat line is the same as the Vindictors, they get 1 extra attack targeting a unit of 5 to 9 models, and 2 extra attacks if there are 10 or more models on the other end of their giant celestial greatswords. Now, I don't imagine sniffing too hard at 20 attacks with 5 models. But what it does mean is that this is a sliding scale of quality that is opposition dependent. Think of that sad panda face in the mirror when you go up against the Sons of Behemat army and you're fielding these guys. That's the main reason at least why only 1 unit of these and 2 of the Vindictors. Rounding out the Thunderstrike list then is the stock ranged option, a unit of 5 Vigilers. It's once again pretty vanilla in terms of stat line, all round goodness for sure, and with 2 attacks each with their Stormcaller bow, they'll do a decent job of thinning out an enemy unit or 2. But they're navigators of the Storm ability that sees them marking a target unit so long as they apply at least 1 wound, and then this in turn gives +1 to hit rolls against them for the remainder of the turn, rounds out this smaller point list quite nicely. And that there is 740 points of Stormcast Eternals. You've got your leader staying within arm's length of as many battle line units as possible as you slap up the battlefield and like a zombie horde refusing to stay down. And then you've got some healthy and versatile MSU rank and file to go to work. And the Vigilors doing their thing in the back line. The only thing you're missing really is a bit of mobility. But for now, we're happy to wait for the battlefield size to increase. What's more, assuming you brought the Vanquishers in a box of 10, you'll have options you've already invested in for later. But before we pack up and go home, we put voice to thought that tried, trusted, old and dusty plastic can still do a job in battle with some OG Stormcast, led by a choice of 2 models that are basically the same. And because GW's product line every so often gets bloody confusing, we're bringing a Lord Arcanum on Griff Charger, or its almost equivalent named character, Astrea Soulbright. And depending on where you are in the world, one of these will be readily available and the other won't. Suffice to say, they're both wizards. Astrea has an ever so slightly better stat line and has offensive spells as opposed to just the heals of the Lord Arcanum. But what the Lord does have is the frankly awesome Ride the Winds Aetheric ability that can just up and disappear even when gummed up in combat in the movement phase, and then deep strike elsewhere at the blink of an imaginary eye. I do think Astrea is better for the exact same points, but honestly, take what you can get and be happy to have a mobile and versatile leader that can really pack a punch. For the rank and file battle line, we're bringing 2 units of 5 Liberators. Newly redesigned for this edition, they either come dual wielding generic weapons or with sword and board, but you'll get the benefit from the shields if at least half the unit rounded down has them, meaning you really can have your cake and eat it. Sacrificing just 2 attacks if you bring 2 models with shields for that extra durability seems like the right play to me. But there's no real downside and no real excitement whichever way you load them out. Having only 2 battle line units does leave us a little bit more in the way of points in the other role, and so here we meet up with a unit of 3 Castigators. Our medium range missile option with D3 attacks means they can be anywhere from straight up worse to almighty value for money compared to their ranged contemporaries. But when you add in the facility to either add 1 to your hit rolls or to increase the rend of their Thunderhead Great Bows from -1 to -2, they offer a cheap as relative chips option for when you want to keep the enemy at arm's length. Which leaves us with another mounted unit of 2 Dracothian Guard Concussors to round out the list. Costing a decent chunk of points, it doesn't get much more elite than this outside of the pool of leaders available to you. And what they bring in spades though is versatility, with short range Storm Blast, melting opponents with D3 mortal wounds on a 4-up in the shooting phase, and a good chance to dole out a decent amount of 2 damage wounds in combat mean that these can go toe to toe with a great deal that any opponent might be bringing. And with 6 wounds apiece and a 3-up save, you can expect them to have at least some time to shine in battle before the curtain comes down. And so that there was and is 750 points of This Old Dog Has Some New Tricks. There's a few less models on show, but only a handful less wounds, but some real offensive potency to go with it. What's more, you should be able to dictate the phases of battle and play objective control with your extra mobility. And even when your mounted units are outnumbered, they'll force your opponent to pay a hefty toll to dispense with them. Either way, you can certainly be amped up fielding either of these lists. As you can see, there's also very little between them in terms of cost. Don't forget you've got some Vanquishers left over to expand your Thunderstrike army when the time comes, so arguably you're getting slightly better value, ironically with the newer models. But those mounted units are where the bulk of the comparative cost is coming from in the other build. That though does herald the end of the first part of our story. I must admit I feel invigorated with this new edition and with this new battle tome. It's definitely an exciting time getting a game of Age of Sigmar to the table. And there are so many options if you've decided on the Stormcast Eternals as your first or next army. Alas, I have been the voice of Benji, and this video has ended.